Hello, good afternoon. How are you?
Hello everyone, thank you for joining us and welcome you all to the live international webinar organized by CGC Janjari. My name is Kamal and I look up the International Relations Department of CGC. Basically, we provide a lot of international exposure programs to the students of CGC. So today in this session, we are going to discuss a lot about ethics and engineering. Students, as you already know that ethics are very important in our life. So without ethics, we cannot survive in the world. Specifically in the country like India, where people are always taught that we should have to follow the ethics perfectly. So we also believe that ethics are important in every profession, be it engineer, be it corporate life, or be it the doctors. So the ethics are the base which create the life wonderful. So today in this context, we will discuss the topic: Do engineers need ethics? And for this, I would like to welcome the great speaker, the brilliant professor, Professor Andrew from Glasgow Caledonian University, UK. So I request Professor Andrew, you can turn on the video. Hello, Professor Andrew, how are you doing?
Hello, Camel. Thank you very much indeed. And a very warm welcome to all the students. First of all, my name, as Camel said, is Andrew Quinn. And I'm a lecturer at Glasgow Caledonian University here in Glasgow, Scotland. And as well as being a lecturer here, I also have a responsibility for working with Indian partners. So it's always a great honour and a pleasure. This is the first time I've given my webinar due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I wish to share my screen with you, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to go through, as Kamal has quite rightly said, a little introduction, and maybe he's already answered the question: do engineers need? At the end of my presentation, you will be able to say, yes, we do need ethics. So let me share my screen with you, and I'll go through some slides. If I'm correct, there will be a question and answer session at the end. My slides are almost split into two. There'll be one on ethics and one describing my university and opportunities for study at Glasgow Caledonian University. And at the end of that, we'll have some questions. So let me start by sharing my presentation. Let me just check the questions here. Right, I think this is what I want to do. Let me start sharing. Kamal, do I have rights to share? I don't know if I'm being given it.
Yes, you can share the presentation.
Okay, I got it now. Yeah, thank you. Oh, I've got sign up. Can you see it? Hello, Camel, can you see my presentation?
No, it's not visible. Yeah. Yes, sir. Now it's visible.
Okay, technology. Always a challenge. Okay, let me just continue then. First of all, my thanks to Camel and to CGC campus in Mahali for organizing this event. My welcome also and thanks to faculty members and of course students, as you are the most important part of this. I've introduced myself, Andrew Quinn, and I just want to say that during the presentation then I will discuss why ethics are needed in engineering. And then the second part, I will take some time to talk about my university. So once again, my thanks for the invitation. So I want to say in this slide that ethics for professionals, ethics can apply not just for professionals, but also for us as individuals. Being a professional involves more than just having a technical knowledge, particularly in our field of engineering, where we need mathematical, analytical, problem-solving IT skills. The label of professional, therefore, frames our conduct and how we operate as an engineer, and indeed a good professional engineer. As a good engineer, we have to take a broad view of our work, including its societal and environmental impact, its application, the profit, as well as many other contexts. I see my slides changing, but I don't think they are. No? Okay. We must take responsibility for our decisions, as our decisions can have major consequences for other people. Wait a minute, what is going on? Right. Okay. So I've got some ethical questions I would like to ask you, us, as professionals. So in the first one, I'm going to say that if you help build a technology that's used by others in questionable ways, are you responsible? Now, an example of that would be the gun manufacturers, and campaigners have tried to hold them ethically responsible for what people do with guns. We can also quote, of course, the tobacco industry, I suppose. And more recently, people have been held responsible for manufacturing software that, for example, helps piracy. So what would you do, or if you suspect that you or someone in your organization has been working out with the bounds of their competence? Do you report it, potentially lose your job, or what? And if there's a conflict of interest in your own organization between your professional life and that of your personal role, in your professional role, how would you act? Now, I'm not asking for answers to that at the moment. I want us to conclude an answer at the end of that. But these are questions which, as professional engineers, we're going to be faced with at all times in our professional life. So now I want to start by talking about what do we mean by ethics? How do we define ethics? Well, first of all, ethics is a branch of philosophy. And although that conjures up for me philosophers sitting in cafes on the banks of the River Seine in Paris, discussing whether we are or we are not, we've come a long way from that basic concept. And indeed, what I want to do now is to look at the definition of that, which is from the Greek word ethos, which means character. And that character, perhaps in itself, maybe doesn't mean a lot to us, but it defines what we call principles and values for doing right and doing wrong. So amongst them, we can list many things like dependability, loyalty, commitment, honesty, compassion, respect, and you can add innovation, creativity, efficiency, and so on. There's many, many things. The question is, where do these values, where do these principles come from? Well, they come from basically our family, our society, our beliefs, and they can come from all of these things which affect and guide our lives, particularly when we're younger. We could include in that, I apologize, sorry. We can include in that educational institutions, our community, but the key one is in fact our family and our immediate community. So now we've got a certain standards of characters, of beliefs, principles. How do we use them? Well, we use them in what's called a moral context, and they are our rules for living. So they're rightness, you could argue, or a goodness, and they dictate how we act. I posed the question, why is ethics probably the most important thing that we study as an engineer? And the reason is because it goes beyond the basic needs of your analytical side and dictates quite firmly how you behave as a person and as an engineer in society. As an engineer, which the public relies on, it's important that when you represent yourself, your company, your profession, it's done so in the best interests of society, upholding professional and ethical standards. So I want to introduce you now to an ethical game. It's a light-hearted way of imagining how ethics can affect our lives. It was produced by philosophers and is called the runaway trolley. It's a famous thought experiment in ethics, but again applies to almost everything and anything we do. What you see there is a railway track with 5 people working on it. And there's a junction which leads to another railway track with 1 person. At the top, you see a train. The scenario is the train has lost the power to brake. It cannot stop. You are in charge of the points lever which controls the direction of the train. In one direction, the train will continue unhindered and 5 people will be killed. If the points were changed and the train diverted onto the other line, only 1 person will be killed. And I have to say, for the sake of argument in this example, you assume that the collision is in fatalities. So the question is, if you can operate the lever directly diverting the trolley onto a sidetrack that will only kill 1 person, what would you do? So you have 2 options. Do you stand back and say, well, it's nothing to do with me? Or do you say, I must activate the lever in order to maximize 5 people surviving? The question then is, what is the most ethical choice? Now, I'm going to ask Kamal if it's possible to get a vote on this. Is it possible, Kamal, that we could try to get a vote?
Yes, sir, it's possible. So students are there on YouTube, so you can ask and I can check.
Okay, so can you ask, the question is, who would want to operate the lever and maximize the number of people who live?
So can you repeat the questions?
So there's only one question, and that is, who are the students, or the number of students, or the percentage of students who would operate the lever and maximize the number of people who live?
Yeah, I think students will take time to answer in the YouTube comment section. So I'm checking it out. I think, sir, it's difficult. Can we take the questions after the session? After your it's difficult
Absolutely.
to find
it
out
was
the
only
answers.
an element of if we could do it. Okay, let me continue. If you were one of the persons who thinks that by moving the points and maximize the number of people who live, then you would be amongst approximately 90% of the population who said it's better to save the lives of the 4 people and unfortunately lose the life of 1 person. Now, we can continue this because it gets much more interesting. If we were to say, okay, but what about the 1 person? What if you know the 1 person? What happens if it's a relative, a child, an elderly person? Would that affect your decision? Often that is the case. And so it's not just a simple case of, well, there are 4 people going to be saved if I operate the lever. Well, if the scenario is that it was a relative or someone you were romantically connected with, then indeed your position could easily change. Now, there's no answer to this. There is no right and wrong. And the interesting thing apart about it is it's all controlled by your ethical beliefs. From a philosopher's perspective, utilitarians believe that the most ethical course of action is the one that offers the greatest good for the greatest number of people. So we change the points. On the other hand, the ontologists focus on the rightness or wrongness of the action itself, as opposed to the rightness and wrongness of the consequence. So don't change the points. So here you can see it's a game, but an interesting dilemma about how ethics can affect our everyday lives. I want now to shift on to professional bodies and their ethics. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time on that because it really does dictate what we do as engineers when we are employed. If I consider Christelle Didier writing on professional ethics without profession, it's a French view on engineering ethics. She wrote this in 2009. She comments that the designing act entails a specific responsibility of its authors because society is dependent on engineers in its domain. Essentially, the responsibility for designing in that context must rely with the engineers. If I look at the UK Institute of Engineering and Technology, as all institutes would do, they produce a code of conduct, which says it promotes and encourages ethical behaviour and supports members to take an ethical stance. I'm sure that shouldn't come as any surprise to us, and I just wanted to make one quote from the Engineering Council in the UK, and it's avoid deception. And I chose that word out of their ethical list because a lot of the things we do, we see, we hear, we're exposed to, you could argue has an element of deception in it. We don't say one thing, we say another. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's an element of deception. So, in terms of the statement of ethical principles in the United Kingdom, it's a statement which sets the standards to which members of the engineering profession should aspire in their working habits and relationship, and it guides them in meeting the requirements to exercise responsibilities in an ethical manner. There are 4 fundamental principles that should guide engineers and technicians in achieving the high ideals of professional life. These express the beliefs and values of the profession and I've amplified them below, and I'll talk in a little bit more detail about them. And the first one, as you might expect, is honesty and integrity. The next one, respect for life, law, and the public good, accuracy and rigor, and finally, leadership and communication. And that also incorporates responsible leadership, listening and informing, and I'll expand on these in a moment. But these four standards are very important for us. So if we start by looking at honesty and integrity, we see that including in that, we can say, be alert to the ways in which your work might affect others, and duly respect others, duly respect and the rights and reputations of other parties, avoid deceptions, take steps to prevent corrupt practices or professional misconduct, and declare conflicts of interest. We talked about that before. Reject bribery or improper influence, and act for each employer or client in a reliable and trustworthy manner. So that's our honesty and integrity. The next one we mentioned was respect for life, law, and the public good. And in that context, we see ensure that all work is lawful and justified, minimize and justify any adverse effect on society or on the natural environment for your own and succeeding generations. Take due account of the limited availability of natural and human resources, hold paramount the health and safety of others, act honourably, responsibly, and lawfully, and uphold the reputation, standing, and dignity of the profession. And finally, professional engineers and technicians should give due weight to all relevant law, facts, and published guidance in the wider public interest. Okay, number 3 in that respect was accuracy and rigor. Always act with care and competence. Perform services only in areas of current competence. Not knowingly mislead or allow others to be misled about engineering matters. And present and review engineering audience theory and interpretation honestly, accurately, and without bias. And the final one, just to go through these points as well. Firstly, we have responsibility, leadership, listening, and informing. And be aware of the issues that engineering and technology raise for society, and listen to the aspirations and concerns of others. Actively promote public awareness and understanding of the impact and benefits of engineering achievements, and be objective and helpful in any statement made to their professional capacity. Now, that might have seemed quite a long list, but these are all things which you should have been saying to yourself, that applies to me just as much as it applies in my professional context. The way I behave in society, the way I behave in my family, the way I treat other people, and the way I look after my environment, it's all the same. So professional engineers and technicians should aspire to highest standards of leadership in exploitation and management of technology. You as engineers hold a privileged and trusted position in society, and are expected to demonstrate that you are seeking to serve the wider society and to be sensitive to public concerns. We've laid the basis now from our values, our principles, into a code of conduct. And let's just reflect on that in a couple of 3 case studies. So I want to present to you, first of all, where the lack of engineering ethics have killed thousands of people across the decades. Now, I do appreciate that most of you are quite young. In 1984, we have the Bhopal gas tragedy. That was the 3rd of December, in fact, and about 45 tons of methyl isocyanate escaped from an insecticide plant that was owned by the Indian subsidiary of the American firm Union Carbide Corporation. The final death toll was estimated, just estimated, to be 15 to 20,000 persons. And to date, people are still suffering the effect of that disaster. The investigations later established that substandard operating and safety procedures at the understaffed plant had led to the catastrophe, and Union Carbide Corporation accepted moral responsibility and paid compensation. Again, a little bit before your time, and that was in 1986, we had the Chernobyl disaster, which was then part of the Soviet Union, now Ukraine. And it was a nuclear accident at a nuclear power plant. During a systems test, there was an unexpected power surge that began a chain of events that consequently caused explosions and fire, which released radioactive particles into the atmosphere. The dangerous particles spread over a large part of Europe. Large areas were evacuated, and the nearby city of Pripyat remains a ghost town to this day. It's the only accident in history of a commercial nuclear power plant to cause fatalities from radiation. It was produced by a severely flawed Soviet-era reactor design combined with human error. And the final one I want to talk about, which is much more recent, so you may have some recollection of this, was in 2010, Deepwater Horizon. This was a rig owned and operated by an offshore oil drilling company, Transocean, and leased by the oil company British Petroleum. 20th of April 2010, a surge of natural gas blasted through concrete core, recently installed by a contractor, Halliburton, in order to seal the well for later use. It killed 11 workers and injuring 17. The volume of oil escaping the damaged and well thought to be between originally estimated 1,000 to 60,000 barrels of oil per day. And in September 2014, the US District Court ruled that BP was primarily responsible for the oil spill because of gross negligence and reckless conduct. Those were not accidents. If you just reflect on the ethical codes of conduct we've just talked about, they were all avoidable, either from safety or from professional competence, etc. And these are the issues which face engineers today, that what might seem as a routine piece of work, if it's not carried out competently, if it doesn't carry out in accordance with ethical standards, then you run the risk of many people being killed. So, new challenges for us. If I look and see what the French philosopher who died in 1961, commented in 1964, that engineers are being asked to find solutions for societal problems. And that's quite an interesting concept. If we think about professionals, now we have to worry about more ethical impacts of decisions of machines. Industry 4.0, for example, refers to the conduct of factories in which machines are augmented with wireless connectivity to sensors connected to a system that can visualize the entire production line. And make decisions of its own. In essence, Industry 4.0 describes a trend towards automation, data exchange, processes, cyber physical systems, Internet of Things, industrial Internet of Things, cloud computing, etc. And connected with that, we also have the advancement in autonomous robots. They're particularly desirable in the field of spaceflight, household maintenance such as cleaning, wastewater treatment, or delivering goods and services. We see that in drones. Among other attributes of the robot, they can avoid situations which are harmful for people, property, or in itself, those of a design specification. However, the Internet of Things, or machines, autonomous robots, are based on algorithms or program code. So the question is, who writes the code or program? What are their ethical values and morals? Are they different from yours and your society? Refer back now to the ethical game we just played. Some of you may have thought, oh, it was better not to change the points. And that wasn't wrong. Some of you thought to do. So there are two ways of looking at it. There are many ways of looking at it, in fact, for different reasons. And so who's going to program these autonomous robots? These algorithms then, program, this code, is becoming a policy, yet may not reflect the society in which they are being used. So what is the solution to that? Is there a solution to that? Professionals have to decide then what the outcome of the situation will be. That means applying ethical standards as written in codes of conduct or professional values. In this slide, I want you to reflect on new challenges brought about with the advances in technology and artificial intelligence, and that is autonomous vehicles. It is a modern version of the trolley question. You have to decide, in this example, who lives and who dies. So what we have here is a car in which you can see there are 5 passengers. It is approaching a crossing point on the road in which you can see 3 people legitimately crossing the road. Now, as I said before, it's a very similar position to the trolley question. In this case, the autonomous car has lost the power to brake. If it continues unhindered, those 3 people will be killed. However, the person sitting in the control of the car, not controlling it, I have to say, because it's an autonomous vehicle, has the ability to steer the car. They can steer the car into a barrier, protecting the 3 persons, but killing the occupants of the car. Who lives and who dies? An autonomous car is a car built with sensors, and it has the ability to visualize, to sense everything which is going on. So if that car were programmed to save the lives of the 3 persons, but take the lives of the occupants, would you be happy to sit in the car? Maybe not. Maybe not. I must direct you to a very good TEDx presentation by Yad on the social dilemma of driverless cars. He was an expert and has done a lot of work on it, and it's a fascinating presentation. And if you get a chance to have a look at it, it's certainly worthwhile. And it also surveys people's views on that, and that is equally very, very important. So if there was any doubt today, I hope by now you're saying, well, we do need ethics. Not only do we need ethics as individuals, but we also need ethics as engineers. Ethics is part of our everyday lives. It governs what we do and how we behave. It guides us professionally and morally, and that can't be a bad thing. And it also sets the basis for standards. So I put it to you, ladies and gentlemen, that indeed ethics is important for us. And it's crucial that, in fact, to maintain the integrity of professional engineer, ethics must be taught to us at a very early stage. So that is all I wanted to talk to you about in terms of ethics, just to persuade you that ethics is a good thing, if you hadn't already came to that conclusion. And Mr. Preetmont maybe wants to say something now.
So it was a wonderful presentation by you. I think what I believe that in organization we give importance to other factors like communication skills should be there, good leadership skills should be there. But I think the ethics should be get the equally important, right? So it is the ethics which are very important for everyone's life, not professionally but for the personal life as well. So yes, it was a great presentation by you, and there are a few questions which the students have asked over YouTube. So I'll put the questions to you. The first question is, can there be situation where the framework of ethics can be violated?
I'm sorry, Camel, you're present. You've stopped, you've frozen. Oh dear.
Still be justified.
Hello, Camel, can you hear me? Hello. Hello, can you hear me? Kamal, can you hear me? Hello, Kamal, can you hear me? Hello. Hello, Kamal, can you hear me?
Yeah, sir. Sorry for the technical error. I think there was a little technical error from our side, maybe. Sorry for the inconvenience, sir. So there was some questions from the students that I was
Please.
asking you. Can there be a situation where the framework of ethics can be violated and would still be justified?
Say that again, please.
The question is, can there be situations where the framework of ethics can be violated and would still be justified?
Where the framework of ethics can be
Violated. If somebody
violated.
breaks, yeah.
And
it still can be justified by the person. Like, for example, there are a lot of situations where people don't follow the ethics and they justify the situations. So what are your comments over this?
My comments are, in terms of your professional standard, the answer is no, because your professional standard are setting the rules by which you must operate. And there can be no doubt about it. So whether it's competence, safety, honesty, whatever, there can be no doubt. You must abide by that.
Okay. So as we know that
within your question, however, it is interesting to note that your ethical values will be based on whatever you've learned, whatever it be, your beliefs, your society. And so, yes, there will be differences between, as you will find, between yourselves as students and between ourselves as in different countries, different beliefs, different genders. So there will always be differences. But in terms of the rightness and wrongness of your professional conduct, then there's no conflict within the context of your professional ethics.
Great, sir. So as we know that instead of human beings in the workplaces, so how we can check if they are following the morals, because humans can follow the morals, and how the robots instead of human beings, they will analyze the situations over there.
Your question was truncated, but I suspect what you were saying is how do you ensure that your robots are ethically programmed? Is that correct?
Yes, sir, but there are some situations where humans can take decisions, as per the situation where robots are like programmed. But how is there any system of check, or how we can see like the robots can actually like follow the morals or follow the values like the human beings are following?
The answer is quite simple in a sense that companies or organizations or programmers that produce this code, they must be rigorously tested. So it's not a case of saying, I produced it, I passed it out, And as some companies do, we see this time and time again, they pass it out and it crashes because it has not been tested. So they have got to rigorously test all the scenarios to make sure that they are working within their operational ethical guidelines.
Great.
So the responsibility, as far as I'm concerned, is to do with the organizations who are producing the software in this case.
Okay. So what are the suggestions that you would like to give to the students of engineering? Like, should they focus more on the technical skills, or they should focus more on practical skills? So how they can balance, or how they, they can focus on? What are your suggestions to engineering students, as you have great expertise in engineering?
As engineering students, you need to have your analytical skills. You need to have your IT skills, problem-solving skills. There is no doubt about it. In addition to that, however, soft skills are very, very important for industries. I work a lot with our engineers here, trying to develop their soft skills. And their soft skills be communications, team building, decision-making, all of these things. So you need, in addition to building up these hard skills, you need to work on the soft skills. No engineer works in isolation. The concept we used to have years ago of the engineer, or sometimes the computer scientist, who worked in a cupboard and you let the person out of the cupboard when they'd finished the job. Life doesn't work that way. And companies need skilled team members. They need people who can communicate, and they need people who can generate ideas. Hence the reason many often in our countries these days, they're looking for entrepreneurs. They're looking for people who can generate ideas. So these soft skills, absolutely essential, as well as your analytical problem-solving skills.
Great, sir. So what should we consider to be the highest principle of ethical conduct for engineering?
For me, it's the respect of life. There is no greater than the respect of life, the respect of your fellow man. If I can think about His Holiness the Dalai Lama on his visit to Chandigarh last year, quoted that we're all brothers and sisters. And so we must live ethically as brothers and sisters and not make a distinction between anyone, regardless of their size, gender, or whatever. So it's treat everyone as your own brother and sister.
So how to identify ethical egoism? There's, I think, a lot of questions there from the students.
Say again, please.
How to identify ethical egoism?
Egoism.
Yeah. Can you list? Can you list a few?
Are you suggesting, is the question about the self and,
yes,
and how people, how can you identify that?
Yes, how people can bound to follow ethics every time. How they can, identify the ethical egoism.
Well, it's an easy one and a difficult one to answer, because it's an easy one because I just have to say, you must act together with other people. You must never act solely on your own, and you must do everything for the benefit of your fellow humans, your society, your people. I suppose the difficult part is to say, well, if I'm on my own doing something, then I'm working on my own ego. But you must be very careful, then you must always work towards the greater good of society.
Okay, great. So there is one more question. Can you list few, as you know that today the world it's a new normal, people are working online, so can you list few ethical that recommended to engineering teachers and students in virtual learning process?
It's a very interesting question, that one which I probably didn't expect. But for me, the online working is exciting, is demanding, is challenging. And my fear is we discriminate.
Yeah.
That in doing so, the first thing you have to assume is the person has a computer, that they're computer literate, that they're in a position whereby they have the ability, knowledge, and equipment to act in that way. So that's the first thing. The second thing I thought, as individuals, we have to cope with those who perhaps have, let's say, some difficulties. And a classic one, of course, which I often think about is sight or hearing loss. And it's easy for us to say, yes, you can listen to my presentation, but excuse me, I am deaf. Or I have a sight disability and I cannot see colors or something like this. So as far as I'm concerned, the most challenging thing for us in terms of digitization of our learning is inclusiveness, so that we do not discriminate against those who may be slightly disadvantaged as a result of many things.
Okay. So thank you, sir. These are the questions which the students are. It was wonderful to learn about the ethics today. So we would also love to know about your university. So what are the programs that you can offer? What are the options for international students? How the international students life over there in UK at Glasgow Caledonian University? So we can proceed with your another presentation as well.
Perfect. I've got a small presentation and I'm going to share that with you. So let me continue again.
Sure, sir.
To share. Do I have control?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me check that I have it working again.
Let me check, sir.
Okay, I seem to have it.
Yes, now it's visible.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, everyone, thank you very much for that. Thank you for the very interesting questions. Ethics is not easy. It's not easy. We must strive as best we can to do that. Let me take the next few minutes. I'll be quite quick with it, just to tell you a little bit my university. Glasgow Caledonian University. This is our building that you can see in front of us, directly in the centre of Glasgow. So a few pictures of Glasgow in Scotland. The first one you can see there is Edinburgh Castle. Edinburgh is the capital city of Scotland. Population of Scotland is about 5.5 million. So I think you could probably fit about 2.5, or maybe 3 Scotlands into Delhi in terms of population size. Many castles, active castles, ruined castles, museum castles. But anyway, this one is the one in Edinburgh. We are proud of our history. So you may recognize this person here called Andy Murray. So for such a small country to produce a world champion in tennis is great. He's currently recovering, I should say, from injury. You'll see this again later on if you're not familiar with it, but we have very nice scenery and this train. We play the bagpipes, we wear tartan, we wear kilts, and it's very similar to your own military. We also play the bagpipes. This is the art gallery in Glasgow. Art galleries and museums are free. and this is the art gallery in Glasgow. It's a beautiful building. And we have lots of street art which is started. And I have to say, it is very, very good. And not street art as in graffiti, but street art which is like this, which is very nice. And there's a typical street in a part of Glasgow. So about Glasgow Caledonian University, well, 97% of our graduates are in further work or study. Now you may say 97%, why not 100%? Well, many graduates, when they finish, they disappear, they go away, they don't keep. I was one of them. Others may opt to take a year out. Others can go traveling, look after persons, get married, do all sorts of things. So it's a very high statistic. And we pride ourselves in our work placements that are offered from 79% of our undergraduate programs. And we have, within engineering, opportunities to study abroad through exchange programs. So a lot of our students go and study in Europe. And we have internships as well, where we have working opportunities working with local businesses. About GC in Glasgow, 70% of our professional and career orientated are master courses, and 25% of our master programs have an integrated work placement. Again, the emphasis is on work, and you'll see this time and time again. Our city centre campus is right in the centre and is very centralised and self-contained. So a little bit about Google Maps. If you haven't already seen Google Maps, that's Glasgow. The star is where Glasgow Caledonian University is. We're right beside the bus and about 5 minutes walk from the train station. City centre here, 8 minutes by walk. West End. I live in the West End. If you can just see my house, I'm just waving. But you'll see in the West End lots of the parks. There's cinemas, there's bars, there's restaurants, the museums and things like this. So about 34 minutes to get there from the university. From the university to the bus, to the airport, it's 25 minutes by bus. And there's lots of live music conferences in the city centre as well as the southwest there. Again, very short distance from the university. There's a picture of the campus. We have 3 schools: Engineering of Computing and Built Environment, which is where I am, School of Business and Society, and School of Health and Life Sciences. As we're engineers, I'm not going to mention the other 2, but they have full suites of business programs and a lot of very good allied health work in the health science. So I put this slide up, which is the School of Computing, Engineering and Built Environment programs. You're going to say they're the same as everybody else. And to a certain extent, you're absolutely right. So we've got a complete set of civil engineering programs, electrical engineering, computing, forensic, project management. They're all there. And these are run not only in every other university, probably in the United Kingdom, but in India also. Where we pride ourselves as different with respect to these programs is we do a lot of local business. A lot of industrial placements are attached. We consider this to be very, very important. Glasgow Caledonian University is based out of a college from many years ago, and practical employment placements are very important to us. Mr. Preet asked me to talk about the summer school, and it's very fortunate because I run the summer school, or I run the summer school for the engineering. Last year, it was 2 weeks. A piece of paper, I just got a thing across me, just give me 2 seconds. Okay, 17 to 31 July, I couldn't remember the exact dates. But as you can imagine, because of the pandemic of COVID-19, it did not run this year. Oops, I've lost control. That's back. Up till then, we only had 1 program in the School of Computing, Engineering and Built Environment. There was plans to run 3 last year or this year, which of course didn't take place. And I run the Entrepreneurship and Circular Economy program. I'll talk about that later. The cost is approximately 1.38 lakh, approximately. It's a problem-based project and students are expected to work in teams. I hope you get the theme. What I mentioned before, the importance about students and how you work, about these soft skills, for me are very, very important. And if you learn them in an environment like a summer school, then it's fun. So you really do get a lot of skill based out of that. In addition to this team working, we have taught topics which require attendance in class. And there are social events, either to places of historical interest, sites of engineering interest, and things like this. So we do our best to make sure that culturally you get a good experience. There are credit-bearing programs. There are 10 GCU Scottish credit points or 5 European credit points. And of course, there's always some time to shop or tour the city and surrounding area, maybe go to Edinburgh and things like this. So that £12,000 or 1.38 lakh includes tuition, accommodation, but flights are not included. So it's very important to remember that. So my program, I can talk a bit more detail about that, is based on teamwork. It really is identifying you to work together with people perhaps you've not even seen before, met before, emulating, if you think about it, exactly what you'd be doing in a business. And so I'm going to be building up your team skills. And I'll do that in a variety of different ways. I'm also going to teach people about the circular economy, sustainability, because the limited earth resources that we have are dwindling by the day. And so it's very important that we are aware of these things, and we'll be talking about that. And then we're going to develop an idea based on that about whatever you want in your team. So we'll give you decision-making skills as well in your teams so that you can come to a conclusion and not one person dominates it. And then you'll develop that idea over the 2 weeks together with the presentation materials. For example, I'll be teaching about marketing, decision-making, team building, and presentation skills. So you'll present that in an oral presentation and in a written presentation. And I'm also take people away for a student team building weekend. Can be challenging. I ask you to cook. Here's a short presentation I made 2 years ago when I had Indian and Chinese students in my class. Where is the bridge? Harry Potter. So I hope you enjoyed that little presentation I put together a couple of years ago just for a few of the students that were attending my summer school. Just a few things to finish off. We talked about the city centre, very centralised, self-contained. Facilities include the largest canteen in Scotland, gym, on suite, again on site, the Students' Association, Faith and Belief Centre, which we encourage all students to go. And we've got this award-winning Saltaire Centre, which is the library, study rooms, it's a coffee shop, it's lots and lots of things that the students like, so which is great. 2 or 3 slides just to finish off about typical fees and entry requirements, which I have to give you. Undergraduate, so it's approximately 15,000 or 16,000 lakh per year. Postgraduate, again 13,000 approximately lakh per year. And entry requirements, you can look at these later as you wish. Undergraduate, a minimum of 60% in each subject from your 12 standard exams. And for postgraduate, your 4-year bachelor degree at 50% or 3rd year degree at 60%. And English language must be, again, from your standard 12, 70% or higher, IELTS or equivalent. And just to let you know, there is a link to this typical entry requirement for languages. Something which is always of interest to any student wanting to come to Caledonian, quite naturally, is scholarships, how much scholarships are available. It's lots of these things, and it's difficult times to keep up with it at times. The easiest thing to do is to go onto the GCU website and look at the scholarships. So as you can see there at the very top, I said new to GCU, you can get up to £4,000 for undergraduate or 2,600 for postgraduate. There's an ambassador scholarship available as well at £15,000, which is quite considerable. There's a loyalty scholarship, and students who attend, for example, the summer school are considered GCU students, and so they are also eligible for a 20% discount. There's an early payment discount as postgraduate engineering scholarships. Anyway, the easiest thing to do is to look at the website for more information. This is quite interesting because the Home Office in London, immigration is dealt with by United Kingdom government, as opposed to local laws and taxation and health and education, which is dealt by the Scottish government. And they said that they would be reintroducing the post-study work visa for students who were in study by April 21. Which means basically students who are starting this year, which is very much welcomed. I'll put down the points here. It's a complicated area. We generally don't give out visa advice except from our specialists. It is available on our website, so you can go on there and look at it. The reason is because we do not want to give false information. So we do encourage you, if you are interested in that, to look at the post-study work visa. It is most welcomed by us. It's a great opportunity. Glasgow, as well as Scotland and UK in general, has a large Indian population, and it's a great place to live. So I can recommend it. And so if students want to come here, would be super, more welcome. Bit about accommodation. We have accommodation again, just on opposite the campus, and approximate costs are £100 to £113 a week. The difference between the two is for en-suite facilities, but things like light, heat, and internet are all included. There's 24-hour security staff and CCTV. I have to say, in Glasgow, it's not a major problem. We have a very good society, and so we don't generally have many problems. And again, people can find details about student accommodation from the website. In terms of finance, it's again worth pointing out what the cost of living is in Glasgow. So we've listed on the left-hand side there typical items: accommodation, energy bills, local transport, and costs in pounds, in rupees, and in dollars. And so you can see there that it's approximately 1 lakh for a month's subsistence. And just to see, you multiply it by 12, obviously, for 12 months. And they're obviously approximate, but they're indicators. We've got to give that legally now, and I think it's a very good idea. So it was a quick run through there. I hope accommodation, by the way, if you were to come in the summer school, would be in the halls of residence right beside the campus. So that's already been taken care of. So I'll take more questions, but just before that, I'll just say, if you've got my name, Mr. Preet also has a copy of this presentation. You've got my email address and the university website. We also, because we have such very strong links with India, we have a GCU representative based in Mumbai, Aisha. She's our senior recruitment advisor. That's our mobile telephone number and our email address. And GCU international inquiries, obviously, which are held from Glasgow, again, by phone or by email, or I think there might be a web form, yes, on the website. So, thank you very much. Kamal, back to yourself.
So you have a very beautiful campus. I just seen your presentation now. So we can definitely recruit students in 2021 for the summer programs. It's quite interesting to recruit for the summer programs. We can start with summer programs, and yes, we can also invite you to our campus once the COVID situation settled down. And it will be great to have you with us. It's really wonderful. It's really an honor for us to have you with us today. And thank you so much, sir. It was really a wonderful presentation, really very informative. And thank you once again, and have a nice day, sir.
Thank you very much. Can I just say not only a big thanks to yourself for organising it, to your faculty members for their assistance, but also to your students. Thank you very much for being part of this webinar today. I hope you've I hope you've enjoyed it. I wish you good luck with your studies. I think that's very important. It's a challenge. It's been a particularly challenging time with COVID. Stick at it. Do the best you can. I hope I have the opportunity to see you sometime. I will certainly pass by the next time I'm in Chandigarh. And I ask you all to take care of yourself during this insidious pandemic. So take care and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Have a nice day. Take care, you too.
And you. Bye.
Bye. Take care.